Do flowers make you happy, but a kinked hose makes you mad? Or maybe you're somewhere in between. Today we're going to dive into how your mindset, your attitude, can directly influence your gardening. Yes, even the fate of your tulips and tomatoes. I'll share real-life stories and examples that demonstrate how you can turn garden blunders into blessings and make weeding feel less like a chore. Get ready to transform your garden into your happy place where fun, ease, and joy are part of the routine. So come along as I take you through a workshop I hosted on this very topic. So what we're going to do is cover this fabulous article that I found in 2019. I was completely blown away by this, and I'm really excited about sharing this with you today because as I read Hitendra's, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, his article, I thought, hey, this applies to everyone, even gardeners too, yes. So let me tell you a story about mindset because I experienced this in a big way many, many years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday. So back in the 80s into the 90s, it was like 8 years, I worked on research ships and tugboats, ocean-going tugs. And so the closest thing to gardening that I experienced was the lettuce in our salads. Now in 1984, I quit my seagoing job and I moved to Kodiak Island, Alaska. But during my first trip to the grocery store, I was shocked. I mean, it was sticker shock, and the veggies weren't all that great. They were very poor quality. So then I vowed to grow as much of my own food as I could. So I raised a few seedlings, which was a first for me. I transplanted them, I watered them, and they died. Yep. Now, I didn't know much about gardening, but I figured it had something to do with soil, and I knew I didn't want to give up so early. So I went to the library, and this was pre-internet, remember, and I kept coming across the word compost. So I called the extension service in Fairbanks, asked them for help, and they said, the nice lady said, oh, honey, it's going to take 5 years to get finished compost. Well, I didn't have 5 years. This was February, and I wanted to have fresh greens in June. So we eventually transformed a brown moonscape of a yard into a lush garden of veggies, flowers, and herbs. Now, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that there's a bed. So that's our rhubarb bed. Now, turning my first compost, turning my first soil, growing my own veggies was a turning point in my life. So I started writing about gardening, a weekly column now for almost 30 years, sharing my experiences, developing courses, starting a YouTube channel, and this group. And I co-authored the New York Times bestseller, Chicken Soup for the Gardener's Soul. And I'm writing a new book, as a matter of fact. So more and more studies are confirming how important one's mindset is in all aspects of our lives. So I decided to ask gardeners what was important to them. And through this survey, 65% said to advance gardening skills, which made sense to me, really. But then this was really special. It was 33% of people polled. They wanted to nurture a deeper connection and an understanding with the garden and plants. So this today is part of the 33%, and I think these just meld together as far as, mindset as it pertains to gardening. Do you ever feel frustrated with your gardening efforts? Every year, maybe it's the same old, same pests, same problems with your zucchini, or maybe things aren't growing as well as you'd hoped. So it might not be about planting more, weeding faster, or working harder, but adjusting your mindset. So Henry Ford once said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So there are two kinds of mindsets. We have a fixed mindset and we have a growth mindset. Now, knowing the difference between the two And more importantly, recognizing when you're in one or the other gives you the advantage of making better decisions. You stay calm no matter what's happening around your life. And basically, you become a better gardener, husband, wife, co-worker. So let's all dig in. Now, a fixed mindset. These are gardeners that might see their brown thumb as something that they were just born with. So as a result, they might tend to shy away from innovative gardening methods, new things, new tools, or from even trying a new variety of broccoli. Another thing about fixed mindset is when things fail, plants shrivel and die, they often blame the weather, the soil, the phase of the moon, or the neighbor's dog, right? Now, one more thing. Those with a fixed mindset might also stay clear of feedback from people. They just stick with what they know. That's it. Avoid challenges, as in responsibilities, and often focus on other people's flaws. And that's kind of to boost themselves, lift their own ego, put themselves on the pedestal. So now let's look at a growth mindset. So in contrast, those with a growth mindset, they might see every gardening challenge, everything that happens to them, as a series of learnable skills. Okay? You know, they're curious, they're resilient, they bounce back, and they easily step out of their comfort zones. They believe that with the right methods and maintaining what I call a keep on, keeping on perseverance, they can cultivate a thriving garden, no matter what, just doing their best. So speaking of keep on, keeping on, do you know the story of the two frogs in trouble? There's two frogs and they fall in a bucket of milk. And they go, oh, well, if we don't do something, we're going to drown. And so they both start paddling, swimming as fast as they can. And then after about an hour or so, one of the frogs says, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do it. And so he just gives up and then he sinks into the milk. And the other one just says, well, what have I got to lose? Keeps churning and churning and churning. And eventually the milk turns to butter and the frog climbs up on the ball of butter and escapes. So never give up. Now, a growth mindset, this really spurns on your desire to grow, say, a new kind of cucumber, try making compost for the first time. You learn from your crop failures and you welcome feedback from more experienced gardeners. So when we adopt a growth mindset in gardening, this not only helps overcome challenges like pest infestations, like an explosion of aphids or poor soil, but it also enriches your overall gardening experience. So right now, we're going to compare a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset and how this approach can not only lead to, say, lush gardens, but more happiness and peace in your life. Now, as I go through these, you might feel a twinge of this or that, like, maybe this does apply to me. Now, that's okay. Just even recognizing it is fabulous. That's growth in itself. So, how might someone with a fixed mindset approach gardening? Well, for one thing, they're less open to critical feedback. So here's an example. When a more experienced gardener suggests maybe a different pruning technique, of your cherries or your apples, the person might quickly dismiss the advice entirely, or not even listen well, insisting that their way of doing it, their method, is the only way because it's how they've always done it. More defensive or totally uninterested when giving feedback. So if someone, say, comments on their plants might need more sunlight, they might feel criticized or either respond defensively or kind of ignore them or turn away, and maybe even lose interest in discussing gardening techniques at all with this person. So they're not as willing to take on new challenges, try new things. For example, when offered a chance to participate in a community garden project in your neighborhood or your area, they hesitate because it involves learning about new gardening methods. Nope, not me. They believe that there are certain things that you're good at and certain things you're not good at. Kind of like already accepting that. No, I'm good at this, but no, I'm not good at that. They might think, I'm just not good with growing carrots, and completely avoid trying to grow them at all, even though with some research and a little bit of effort, they would probably succeed and do fine. Or when interacting with others, other gardeners, they look for ways where, they're better than other people. So let's say you go to a garden center and they're looking for seedlings. They might be in a conversation and boast about how their tomatoes are always the first to produce fruit, right? So that's kind of like a subtle way of implying that you know better or their gardening skills are superior. They look for flaws in others, mistakes that other people do in order to feel good about themselves. So they might visit another gardener's greenhouse, for example, and point out, the cucumbers, they're not staked quite right. No wonder they're doing this and that. Or that your onions need to be thinned better. So by focusing on these mistakes, they'll do that in order to boost their own confidence in their own gardening abilities, or kind of overshadow their inabilities or what maybe they don't know. Okay, so now let's switch it up and apply a growth mindset to gardening. How might someone with a growth mindset approach gardening? Well, they want to learn and grow. So a gardener with a growth mindset is eager to expand their knowledge about, say, how to improve soil, different plant species. They continuously improve their overall garden's health. They know how important that is, and hence the harvest yield. So they might be more open to feedback so that they can improve and learn. This example is they actively seek advice from more experienced gardeners. They don't shy away from it in order to learn how to better manage pests or improve soil quality. Soil quality is like the foundation of gardening. You have problems, sometimes, many times, oftentimes, it's all about the dirt. And I like to say, CBE, this is my new one, can't beat experience. So you can't learn how to ride a bike if the kickstand is down. They're not overly sensitive to criticism. They're not a wilting violet and crushed if somebody says something. So when someone points out that their plants in the greenhouse are getting moldy because they need more air circulation, they see it, people with a growth mindset see it as an opportunity to learn rather than a personal slight. I mean, they're on it. They're going to make the adjustment and just go with the advice. Criticism isn't just rejected. There's my typo. I like it. Just because it was delivered in a way that might feel a little, or it makes you feel uncomfortable. So if feedback from someone comes off a little harsh, this is something that I deal with. I need to kind of hit the pause button and go, wait a minute, is this true for me? Is this true for my garden? All right? Like your neighbor comes over and comments about the shrubs need pruning or the lawn needs mowing, and how does one feel about it? Growth mindset is you reflect on the content of the message, not the messenger, to see if there is truth that they can use to improve their garden. And it's okay to step out of their comfort zone because they might learn something new. So they might try making compost, even though it's completely foreign or new to them. The overriding reason would be by stepping out of their comfort zone. If you master the art of composting, the opportunity is it might vastly improve the quality of their soil. They might struggle and fail at first, but they spring back having learned or experienced something new, like me trying to grow seedlings in Kodiak's very poor soil 30 odd years ago, almost 40 years ago. So an initial failure in organic gardening, and this is where many gardeners are hesitant to try compost or mulch because it's a lot easier to use chemicals, but they know in the back of their mind that it would be a good thing. So rather than being discouraged, growth mindsetters, I guess you could call it that, they just adjust their approach based on what went wrong, learn from it, and then apply that to another planting of something or next season. And they're curious about other people's strengths, not their mistakes and flaws, so that they can learn and improve themselves. So instead of just envying somebody's rhubarb patch, like, whoa, look, that's just awesome, they actually will ask for tips, techniques. What do you know that I can apply to my garden? Okay? And then you say, thank you very much, and you give them a rhubarb pie later on in the season. You try to keep judgments at bay as your own criticism. Instead of making a quick judgment about a new gardening trend you see on YouTube or methods or something you hear at the coffee shop, ask questions. Watch a few videos. Experiment to see how these could benefit, their own garden. Well, let's put it all together. Let's see how the different methods of different mindsets handle bumps in the road. So, different mindsets will look at life's experiences. Let's see how they would handle them. So if you have a fixed mindset, you might dodge challenges and view any screw-ups as proof that, I'm just not cut out for gardening. I just don't have what it takes. I just can't grow carrots to save my life. I have a brown thumb. It'll never work. On the other hand, if you approach life with a growth mindset, you're likely to embrace those tough spots as the perfect opportunity, the perfect chance to learn and grow. Because basically, it's all about whether you see a setback or a speed bump, right, as a stop sign or a stepping stone. Okay, I wanted to add a couple things. So this is the link to the article by Hitendra. And then here's a couple books that I have found to kind of be along the lines of changing your mindset. This first one, called Kinship with All Life, this was written by J. Allen Boone back in the silent film days. And it's about communicating with animals and even snakes and even microbes and worms. Trust me, it's an amazing read. And the other one is called The Heartbeat of Trees, and this was written by a German forester. I should say maybe he's Austrian. But anyway, he came from a science background, and then he shifted to, wow, there is more to life, to plants, to trees than just the physical da-da-da-da-da. Thanks, you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.